The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 5 injury update and DraftKings ownership projections. Plus, at the end, after Geoff Ulrich joins me to break down said ownership projections, we even give our best bets out at the end of the show, because yeah, we can do that again. So I look forward to the Week 6 spread pick show with Jeff Feinberg and Tim Andercuss. I want to remind everyone, go back, check out the shows from earlier in the week, still very relevant. No Sunday show live this week. I'm off for the week. I'll be back Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live on the DraftKings YouTube channel and on demand with the audio podcast after the fact. So go sub to those right now. I mean, it even probably popped up on the screen here on the YouTube channel of a quick way to go subscribe to the audio podcast. Rate, review, do all that fun stuff. Also, smash the like button. That's step 1. Step 2, to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, leave your DK handle in the comment section and let me know what you think the final score of Pittsburgh and Atlanta is going to be this week. I'll announce the winner on that Monday show. Plus, I'm also doing a $20 DK giveaway, at least a draw for it. You can get into it by going to my Twitter page at ThePME and share. You can just find it up there. It's an MMA poll for the UFC fight this weekend, Khabib versus Conor. That show is up on the DraftKings YouTube page and the pod is up as well. Recommend everyone go check that out. I know Paul and Cody have picked Khabib to win, but I think that Conor McGregor wins in about a minute and a half. Quick knockout. If he doesn't get him then, probably not going to get him. Going to be a fun fight, though, so go check that out. Let's get into the injury report. We'll start in Cincinnati, and Joe Mixon is going to be back. He's been removed from the injury report. Mark Walton will back him up, and Gio Bernard is out with a knee injury, meaning for the next 2 to 4 weeks, meaning Joe Mixon's, I guess, going to come back and return to a very healthy market share. People are overlooking him. I've bumped him up in my running back rankings for the week. I like him as a tournament play on DraftKings because everyone is paying up at running back. That Joe Mixon probably will end up seeing the same volume. It's a great matchup. He's way cheaper, and everyone's overlooking him because of this injury tag. He makes a very nice pivot play in that range to get away from your James Connors, who's going to be super highly owned, Christian McCaffrey, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley. He's just the guy that's flying under the radar now because of this late week bump up in availability. But Gio is out, Joe Mixon's in, so go nuts and use Joe Mixon. Also for Cincinnati, John Ross is going to be missing the game with an injury. Alex Erickson might be the next man up. It could be Josh Malone. I'm not too concerned about either one of those two. It probably opens up more opportunities for either CJ Uzomah or Tyler Kroft in the receiving game. Plus, of course, AJ Green and Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, a really nice cash value this week. The price is up, but the market share could be even more concentrated in week 5 at home. So dial up some Tyler Boyd. Don't be afraid of that high price tag. He's going to be fine. In Minnesota, Dalvin Cook was a DNP, did not practice on Friday. And generally when that happens, people don't play on Sunday. So I've removed him from my running back rankings. He's still a game time decision, so he's not officially out by any stretch of the imagination. With Latavius Murray, I didn't bump him up too highly, though. The Eagles have a great run defense. Minnesota is a 3-point underdog in this game, and they've been throwing the ball so much that you'd almost have to see Murray get involved in the passing game like he did against Buffalo when things went completely sideways for them. That I just don't think he's a super high upside play. He's going to have to score 2 touchdowns to really achieve his ceiling, and that's really hard to bank on. But he's a great plug and play if you need someone who you know is going to see a lot of field, a lot of snap share if Dalvin Cook sits. So you can dial up some Latavius Murray if you want to, just not a super high upside or even a decent floor play. He's one that you need everything to go right for. In Jacksonville, Leonard Fournette has been declared out. TJ Yeldon probably going to be the highest owned running back on the Week 5 DraftKings slate. I have him inside the top 10 of my running backs at number 10. I actually prefer Mixon a little bit more now that Gio Bernard is going to be out, but still, Yeldon's a fine play. You can dial him up. The only real drawback to any of this is that when TJ Yeldon starts, when Fournette is out, that Corey Grant ends up getting a lot of work. And I don't think it really matters against this defense. I don't think you can go out of your way to play Corey Grant, but he's not an absolute zero if you needed someone to play this week. But Fournette out, Yeldon great play, Corey Grant mediocre play to decent play, I suppose. Not one that I'm going out of my way to target, but in a last case effort, you could do a lot worse. In Green Bay, this is a really complicated one. Randall Cobb is out with a hamstring injury. Geronimo Allison has not passed concussion protocol yet. He'll need to pass it by Saturday afternoon if he's going to have a chance to play. So he's still iffy. I'm betting that he's not going to play, but of course you'll know by Saturday. So if you watch this, after that he could be in or he could be out. Devontae Adams practiced on a limited basis on Friday with a calf injury. He's still a game time decision as well, but it's more looking like he is going to play. So if Geronimo Allison sits, I really like Marquez Valdez-Scantling to come in and almost play a very similar role as he did a week ago. Ty Montgomery is another one who would get a boost up, so he wouldn't just be patrolling the backfield and in a three-way headed timeshare with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. He might get some run at receiver. So for DraftKings purposes, if you're looking to pay down at running back, that could be a sneaky option if both Allison and Cobb sit this game. If Allison plays, don't love any of them all that much because you don't know where the targets are going. But if both of them sit, I'd go Scantling, then Montgomery, then you're looking at Jamon Moore and Equinemius St. Brown as other potential plays out there. I think those are too low on the totem pole. You're putting too much risk into the situation if you go with those. In Houston, Lamar Miller and his chest injury is a game time decision Sunday night. That's going to be relatively problematic to figure out, that if you're relying on Lamar Miller, you probably do need to pick up Alfred Blue just in case Miller sits. Then you play Alfred Blue. In fact, Alfred Blue might be the better play in this situation anyway, as we saw towards the end of the Colts game last week, that we just saw a whole lot of Alfred Blue on the field after Miller sustained that injury. So if he's not 100%, we might get more of a timeshare. Blue could end up playing like 55, 60% of the snaps, even if Miller is active. If Miller sits, it's really tough to put any stock into it because all your guys will have basically played by that point before we know, unless news comes out on Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, which I wouldn't expect it to. So it's a really tough spot. But if you do need someone and you're willing to roll the dice, Alfred Blue is a name that it's not a great matchup, and he's not good, but it's a volume situation, a lot like Latavius Murray would be if Dalvin Cook sits against Philadelphia. Also with Houston in that Sunday night game, Kiki's dealing with a hamstring injury. He's probably going to play. Will Fuller has practiced on a limited basis with his hamstring injury. Did not return to the game last week. I'm always iffy on it. It does kind of look like he's going to play, and if he plays, you should play him. But again, you're not going to know until late on Sunday night, so you need to have other options available. If Fuller plays, it kind of kills Kiki's value. So it's just a situation that if you can avoid it, it's probably best for your mental well-being and potentially the status of your lineup too if you don't need to wait till the very end. But if you have Fuller and Kiki, you plug in Kiki. If Fuller plays, you swap them out if Fuller's active. If not, you just play Kiki and roll with it that way. That might be the way to assess the situation there. But it's just one of these, we're not going to have enough information, and because the game is happening Sunday night, that you're going to be devoid of options. If both of them sit or if both of them play, that it's really hard to make lineup decisions based on that, unless, like I mentioned, if more information comes out, check the updated rankings, which are in the description of this. I'll be updating them all weekend, that you're going to have a better sense that if real news does come out, I'll update them right away so people can know. It'll be updated Sunday morning at least, so you can have time to make your lineup decisions. On the Dallas side of the ball, Zeke looks like he's going to play with his injuries. I wouldn't be holding out for him or picking up Rod Smith or anything like that. Just play Zeke if he's active, and it looks like he is going to be active. Terrence Williams has a foot injury, and he has actually been officially ruled out. You didn't want to play anyone in the Dallas receiving game anyway, but this should at least concentrate the market share for guys like Allen Hurns and Michael Gallup or whoever the hell they want to use today up against the Texans. It's a pretty decent matchup, but there's no trust that you can put into any of these guys. Other than that, in Seattle, the Mike Davis, Chris Carson situation is going to be more complicated because Chris Carson was taken off the injury report Friday with a hip injury. He'll play against the Rams. I'd look at it as a split there. I'd play Carson over Mike Davis, but frankly, I don't want to play any of them against the Rams if I don't have to. In Philadelphia, Clement and Darren Sproles with a quad and hamstring injury have both officially been ruled out. Ajayi is like an okay play. Wendell Smallwood's a shot in the dark, but you need these guys to score touchdowns to have relevancy in this offense and his decent fantasy plays this week. There are better options out there, but Ajayi is probably a guy you're going to have to play because, frankly, talent is lacking at the running back position, especially with bye weeks happening and so many injuries cropping up, that Ajayi is in the upper to mid-20s for me. Smallwood's workloads in the low 30s range if you want to take the gamble on that. Sammy Watkins is listed as questionable against Jacksonville with his hamstring injury. It does kind of look like he's going to play. I didn't think that was going to be the case because these hamstring injuries should be given time to rest. It was a short week after they played on Monday night, so he's not a certainty to play, but if he's in, then it doesn't really change all that much, to be perfectly honest with you, because Chris Conley can still score a touchdown. If Sammy Watkins plays, it doesn't make him a substantially better play. It could be D'Anthony Thomas. It could be anyone in this offense. You kind of just go with your guys. I would veer towards sitting Watkins, even if he does play, because of the matchup and the limitations of re-aggravating that hamstring injury could pop up. I mean, we see it with hamstrings all the time, that guys come back and play, and then all of a sudden they're off to the sidelines 5 minutes into the game because they've re-aggravated it. You need time to heal these things, and it's just really hard to determine how severe each of them are. So I would just bump him down a little bit if he does play. I'm sure you probably have better options than Sammy Watkins this week at least. I mean, of course you own Sammy Watkins. You want to play him when he's fully healthy, but this doesn't seem like the right spot for him. In San Francisco, Marquise Goodwin, quad injury, hamstring injury. He's questionable in a game-time decision. That's an afternoon game. So I wouldn't be playing Marquise Goodwin anyway. If you're really stuck, it would make sense to me, with Dante Pettis out as well, that Patrick Peterson would cover Pierre Garçon in this spot, that Kendrick Bourne might be the one that you would want to play. I mean, you don't want to play Kendrick Bourne, but if you're looking for some sort of sleeper in a very deep league, someone who's completely unowned, Kendrick Bourne would be my option there. George Kittle obviously would be the preferred play, but he's owned everywhere, and he's expensive on DraftKings this week. So Kendrick Bourne would be the option that I would look at there. Matt Breida is questionable with a knee problem. It does look like he's going to play, though. If not, Alfred Morris does actually become an interesting option up against the Arizona Cardinals. Some quick hits from Monday night. Alvin Kamara remained limited at Friday's practice, but it's the Saturday practice for anyone on New Orleans and Washington that really matters to really assess their availability for the game. I expect Kamara to play, so don't worry about him. Mark Ingram is back. Of course, Ted Ginn did not practice on Friday either. He's a veteran. He's likely to play, and he's always a better play indoors than he is outdoors on the fast track, so he can utilize that speed advantage. Adrian Peterson is practicing on Friday. He's going to play Monday night in a revenge situation up against the Saints, and Josh Doxson did not play. I don't know if he's going to go at all for the Redskins on Monday night, and he would be the one that would be theoretically most matched up against Marshawn Lattimore. In his place, Maurice Harris would probably start, but I do like Jamison Crowder in that matchup. I like Jordan Reed and even Paul Richardson, unless Lattimore shifts over to him, which I doubt they would end up doing. So Doxson's a no play anyway, and if he doesn't play, you might want to bump down P. Rich just a little bit if he was a sleeper that you were considering putting in your lineups this week. Also with the Texans, Donta Foreman was announced that he's going to return in Week 7. I'm picking him up everywhere and stashing him. I don't know how he's going to return from these Achilles injuries. Basically, guys retire or come back fine from Achilles. I think it's worth the gamble on Donta Foreman because he's completely unowned. Lamar Miller's been brutal. Alfred Blue sucks. That he has a chance to seize this job, much like Ronald Jones in Tampa Bay. I would actually prefer him over Ronald Jones just because I think that he's a better player in a better, I don't even know if it's a better offense, but they might rely, if Foreman is truly healthy, they might just turn to him and just kind of push Lamar Miller aside and make this a 70-30 situation. And frankly, that situation doesn't come up often just to pluck off the waiver wire. So that's a situation that I would gamble on. Got to stop saying the word situation so often. Just pick up Donta Foreman, stash him on your bench. You're not going to play him in Week 7 when he comes back, but he is a valuable asset to have on your squads moving forward. O.J. Howard is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks. With his injury, they're on bye right now, so that's one of the weeks. In the interim, you can pick up Cameron Brate and probably play him as he is a preferred target of Jameis Winston. He'll be running all of the tight end routes for Tampa Bay once they return from their bye week. So he's a plug and play, someone just kind of to tread water at the position because most people don't have good tight ends, and he is widely available, especially on the bye week. You might even want to pick him up now if you have the room, just so you don't have to fight it out on waivers for a 1-week plug on Cameron Brate, who may or may not be good. But if you need to use someone in Week 6, Cameron Brate, decent option. Evan Ingram is out. Sterling Shepard is in. Whenever Evan Ingram is out, you should probably play Sterling Shepard regardless of the matchup, so I like him. ESPN Bengals reporter Catherine Terrell expects CJ Uzomah to be Cincinnati's top tight end moving forward. I don't know much about her. She could be fake news, but that is something to look forward to. If everyone went and picked up Tyler Kroft, I don't have a good gauge on the situation anyway. I would just try to play none of them. But if you have to, it does seem like Uzomah is a better play than Tyler Kroft, at least in week 5 up against the Dolphins. Devontae Parker on the other side of the ball, questionable with a quad injury. It just seems like they don't want to play him, so he's a true game time decision. It wouldn't surprise me if he was inactive whatsoever. Marvin Jones cropped up on the injury report on Friday with an ankle injury. He was expected to be chalky at his price going up against the Packers on DraftKings. Now a game time decision. Some of the ownership will be released off him, maybe go up to Golladay, go up to Golden Tate, even though they're a more expensive price tag. I'm iffy on Marvin Jones. He was my lowest ranked of the Detroit receivers anyway. Fortunately, that's an early game, so you're going to know by game time whether he's in or he's going to be out. Dolphins tight end A.J. Derby is out for week 5, and on the defensive side of the ball, Jets cornerback Tremaine Johnson is out for week 5, and Olivier Vernon for the Giants will continue to miss another game. He will not play against the Carolina Panthers. Up next, Geoff Ulrich from DK Live is joining me to talk about each position ownership projections for the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings in week 5. Plus, at the end, some of our best bets of the week. Stay tuned. Rolling on the Pat Mayo experience, time to dive into the Week 5 DraftKings ownership projections for the main slate. And if you missed the injury report and you're just tuning into this, remember, no show Sunday morning. I'll be back live Monday, 10 a.m. for the recap, waiver wire pickups, and all of your questions. And don't forget to tune in to the UFC 229 show that is up right now. Conor Khabib, I'm doing a giveaway on Twitter as well, so you go check that out at the PME to get yourself in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Geoff Ulrich from DK Live is on the line to talk about this. We're also going to be using the fansharesports.com's ownership tags to figure out if we can project who are going to be the highest owned players in the Millionaire Maker slate. So Geoff, at running back, to start off, the 3 highest tagged players of the week are TJ Yeldon, with Leonard Fournette out, Aaron Jones, and Christian McCaffrey. Do you think that all 3 of those guys end up above 15% ownership?
I think Yeldon for sure will just because obviously the spot, he's performed pretty well with Fournette, and there's recency bias involved, and the price is pretty good, right? And obviously the matchup. So he's got a lot of things working for him. Aaron Jones is interesting. I'm not sure where he's going to come in. I can see where people just, they dive into the matchup and they're just playing him. And he's probably the best pure runner that the Packers have. So I could see him creeping up just because of the value perspective. I kind of like Ty Montgomery just as much. We can talk about that in a sec. And then McCaffrey is interesting. I think just on the slate with no Kamara, I think he will come in pretty popular. But I don't know. What's your opinion on him?
Yeah, the guys that I have projected for over 15%, Yeldon, McCaffrey, Gurley, James Conner, and Melvin Gordon. It's hard to put Aaron Jones into that circumstance because people are going to pay down at running back. But is everyone just going to take the same guy, I guess, is the question. And right now, I guess the leading candidate would be Aaron Jones. But, like, when you look down there, like, with Sproles out, with Clement out, people might go to Wendell Smallwood against the Vikings just to pray that hopefully he ends up with, like, 10 to 15 touches, maybe ends up with a score. Like, Royce Freeman is down there. Eckler's down there. I don't know. With Chris Carson going to play, I don't know if people are going to go to Carson, go to Mike Davis, or just completely avoid that situation completely. But there's enough options. Like, Kerryon Johnson's another one people might go to. I won't be one of the ones. And what do you make of Latavius Murray at $4,500? If Dalvin Cook sits, he didn't practice Friday, which is a bad indicator for Sunday. Like, do you think people just pile on to him, or was he such bad chalk last time that people are like, no thanks?
I think people will avoid Latavius. Like, I don't think he'll get super popular. He might creep up over 10%, but I could see him like fitting in between 10 and 15. And I'm pretty much there on Jones. Like, I have conviction on those other guys being 15%. I don't really have conviction on Jones because there's other options, like you said, and we're seeing injuries pop up. And if Murray all of a sudden becomes the lead back, I don't think Jones will necessarily be that popular. So I think he'll be, chalk, just not super chalk, I guess.
So from the top end, I was surprised to see James Conner with the ownership tag that he had. I thought coming into the week when I did the DK show on Wednesday morning that it seemed like people were kind of off Conner. There's been a lot of like negativity surrounding him this week because he's coming off a bad week. That's usually what happens. But I just think he's a good play in this matchup. People are just, when you look at the tags and look at the ownership projections, everyone is just trying to get any piece they can of this game. So why not James Conner kind of thing?
Yeah. And I was with you. I really didn't think he was going to be popular at all this week. I thought people just, target Ben and the pass game. So I was a little, I don't know, just a little flabbergasted, I guess, or perplexed, whatever word you want to use at that. So it has me rethinking it a bit because I thought might be a sneaky tournament play to get a piece. But if everyone is thinking that way, then I don't know. So he's coming in at like higher price too. So it does make you think. I mean, you have to get the return from him. If he's going to be the same ownership as Melvin Gordon, I'll probably just play Melvin Gordon, to be honest. That's the guy I thought might get the absolute chalkiest this week against the Oakland Raiders. If we're just looking at the tags and stuff like that, it doesn't appear like he's going to be the most popular. He would have been my pick to be the most popular at the start of the week. But again, we have McCaffrey. Now, apparently James Conner is back on everyone's radar, and then Yeldon. So Melvin Gordon is the guy out of all these players we're talking about I would feel free to be going overweight on, even if he gets a little popular.
I think that Melvin Gordon is probably my objectively my favorite play of all these guys, except for Gurley. It's just Gurley's so much more expensive that it can become somewhat problematic. So tournament plays, if you're looking for them, I thought this was kind of interesting. Now that Gio is going to be out 2 to 4 weeks, and they're not really promoting anyone. Maybe Mark Walton has a larger share of this offense in Cincinnati that really I thought, but I think Joe Mixon's setting up to be sort of a smash tournament play here. If he's back, he's getting 80% of the work against this Dolphins team that's banged up on defense anyway, that no one really wants to play him because of the health status, and it's his first week back, but this might be the perfect time to roll him into lineups.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how popular he actually gets. I'm going to play him regardless because, again, you mentioned it already. There's no backup really. I mean, I can't even, the guy's name, Mark Walton, was it?
Yeah.
He might get a few touches, but it's probably going to be the same scenario. He's just going to take all the snaps like Gio was doing. So, and this Miami defense, they had some weak opponents earlier in the year, but they were terrible against the run in the preseason, absolutely terrible. So this is a really big spot for Joe Mixon. I'm not worried about the injury at all either. He said he was good to go last week and he feels better. It was just I'm not like a knee surgeon, but it was just a clean out procedure. It wasn't anything big. So he seems good to go. I agree. Even if he gets up to 15%, I think you're getting a really good deal there. So Cincinnati defense, Joe Mixon, one of my favorite correlation plays this week.
So, I mean, I don't love Cincinnati's defense. We'll talk about that because they're one of the most talked up defenses of the week. It's more just of a pace of play thing with them and how often are they really going to get a chance to tee off on Ryan Tannehill and generate sacks, generate turnovers. I think they're sort of like a floor defense, but nothing crazy. You need something to break your way, and I just don't think they're going to have that sort of opportunity. But Mixon by himself might be my favorite Bengals play. I like Tyler Boyd, but I'm thinking in terms of pure upside, in terms of the Millionaire Maker tournament, that Mixon works out well. I guess the other one is David Johnson. I thought he would get some buzz after the usage went up, but just not the case. It seems to me like people are double paying up at running back and maybe trying to sneak one of these lower end guys in, that this entire $6,000 range, the two Atlanta backs are in there. It's tough really to tell which one of those you'd actually want to use. So the answer is turning out to be none for most people. And even the $5,000 range, it's TJ Yeldon. No one else is taking anyone.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people just know that they have to pay up for one of these, elite backs like McCaffrey or Melvin Gordon. So a guy like David Johnson, it's a nice story and his price is good and he's got a good matchup and his usage went up. But how many people are actually going to go there? I'll probably go there again because I'm a sucker. But again, it's more of a tournament play. I think most people are just going to lend towards just getting a piece of that Atlanta-Pittsburgh game, probably with a guy like James Conner and then Melvin Gordon, McCaffrey. So, and I agree, the 5K range is just, I don't even know where to go. I mean, Marshawn Lynch is a little bit interesting. He's definitely got the workload there, and the matchup isn't that bad. Carlos Hyde, but there's really no one else that interests me, and I'm not really even interested in those two guys I just mentioned. So
Carlos Hyde is somewhat intriguing for me, I think, just because everyone's sort of off of him. I mean, the matchup's not great against Baltimore, obviously, but he's still going to see probably 20-plus touches. You can't really say that for many running backs, especially ones as cheap as Carlos Hyde on the slate. So you're kind of playing volume over matchup and hoping he can score some touchdowns. That I don't mind that gamble at his price point, knowing that everyone else is going to be off of him. I'm really surprised that neither one of the Tennessee backs is getting any hype. I can see why it's not Lewis because he's so much more expensive, but I thought at $4,400 being favorites in this game against Buffalo, who, listen, I mean, they're not gigantic favorites. They're 4-point favorites right now, which seems off to begin with. But if you think this is a run-heavy game script, you got to think that Derrick Henry eventually gets involved at some point this year. This is the first opportunity where he's been allowed to do that. if people are going to play Kerryon Johnson and people are going to play Aaron Jones, why not just play Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I know. I wrote up Derrick Henry as one of my tournament plays this week. I think it's a great spot. Obviously, recency bias is probably going to drag his ownership down. He's getting a little bit of buzz, but nothing that's going to push his ownership up to double digits, I don't think. And the Bills have given up over 100 yards rushing to the running back position 3 of their last 4 games. They had that one matchup against Minnesota where they basically allowed no rushing yards, and that's kind of skewed their stats. But they're another team with not really a good rushing defense. So this is like a get good game for Derrick Henry. He has seen 18 carries in 2 of his 4 games. And, going back to last year when he got that kind of workload, he produced. So I think it's just a matter of time. Also, don't forget, in week 1, he had a 67-yard touchdown callback as a holding. So, we could be talking about a different story if that held. I think is a good play this week too.
Yeah, Bilal Powell's down there up against Denver. It could be a Crowell game, it could be a Powell game. But at least with Derrick Henry, like you mentioned, like he's seen close to 20 touches in 2 of the 4 games so far. This is the best script, the best opponent that he has played so far in terms of favorable matchup for him. Like in season long, I would play him, and if he has a good week, I would just try to sell him for as much as I could just to get him off my roster because it's going to change week to week to week. The one name that you did bring up too is Ty Montgomery. So what is the scenario where you end up playing Ty Montgomery? Do Allison and, because Cobb has been officially ruled out, Allison we'll probably know by Saturday, and with Adams, he's going to be a game time decision. So how many of those pieces need to be out before you turn to Ty Montgomery and just be like, hey, he's going to play receiver this week. This is great.
I think just with Cobb being out is enough for me personally, because we're talking about GPPs, and I just know Montgomery's upside. And if you look at the last 2 games, he's been effective. They didn't use him much last week, but again, they didn't have to use him much last week, right? I think with Cobb out, that's enough. Allison out, I think he becomes a really, really good play. But just at 3,800, it really comes down to opponent too. I mean, this has a really high game total. This is like one of the games that's kind of not really getting talked about, but it's an over 50-point game total, and it's a 1-point spread. Detroit's terrible against the running back position. So Detroit will put up points. I like Ty Montgomery more than Aaron Jones. I think he could easily outscore him in this spot. And at 3,800, regardless of the status of Allison, I'll be using him in a tournament lineup.
I can see it. I don't think I like him more than Aaron Jones, only because I think the floor, but like you said, the floor for Aaron Jones is so much higher because you know that he's guaranteed to get touches in this game. Montgomery seems like he's going to get a lot or basically none whatsoever. Like even last week, outside of the big play, he didn't do much. He only played 28% of the snaps. But if he can start lining up at receiver here, then it's a completely different situation.
I just think it's such a good opponent that I agree. Like, it's the NFL. Any game script could happen. Detroit could get behind early, throw a pick 6, but I just think with the opponent, it just leans so much towards the Ty Montgomery game that I'm okay taking that chance this week.
Well, you're sort of like the Eagles whisperer when it comes to the backfield. No Clement, no Darren Sproles. I brought this up right off the top, but does Wendell Smallwood at $3,500 interest you whatsoever? Because Jalen Richard is right there at $3,400 too. And you talk about a game where the Raiders are underdogs. It's a high game total. They're on the road in LA playing the Chargers, who have not shown anything on defense whatsoever, except for locking down a few tight ends. That's about it. This could be a game where he ends with 12 targets.
Yeah, I think I'd lean Smallwood. They kind of have similar upside. Like Richard could definitely get involved, but Minnesota's linebackers, like Anthony Barr, is terrible at coverage. He's just terrible. So Smallwood's shown well the last 2 games. Like he's clearly their kind of Darren Sproles option when Darren Sproles isn't in there. So I think that could carry over here. I think the matchup is a lot better than people realize too. People still giving respect to Minnesota defense, which isn't even close to playing as good as it was last year. So I would lean Smallwood out of those 2. I just feel like it comes back to that floor situation. I think Smallwood's got a way better floor, and I think their upside are very similar. So, game script would have to go in Richard's way, but Smallwood's going to get involved regardless because Peterson likes to rotate the backs.
I think I'm going to end up going with Richard. If all things being equal, I'm going to take the guy who just became a father today and get some of that baby swag into my lineup. You know that always works out. It worked out with Danny Willett. Why can't it work out again?
It does always work. It works out more in the NFL, I feel like, than golf, too. So
hey, it happened to Carlos Hyde 2 weeks ago on Thursday night.
Pencil in the 2 touchdowns.
I do want to talk about this Atlanta-Pittsburgh game. Obviously, it's the highest projected over-under of the year. It's like breaching like close to 60 at this point. Yeah. If you had to rank the guys like your favorite DK tournament plays this week, how would you go about that? Like, who is your absolute one smash guy that you need to play from that game?
Oh boy, yeah, I've been kind of wrestling with this, like switching in and out to Pittsburgh and Atlanta guys all week. I honestly don't really have like a firm answer yet. I think Vance McDonald is probably the guy right now. I'm going to have exposure to Vance McDonald again, and it comes down to the Atlanta defense. They've got okay corners on the outside, but they're really bad at covering tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. And I'll throw Ryan Switzer out of there too, because he's been lining up as a back and kind of is their pass catching back. It's taking some work away from James Conner too. And at 3K, I could easily see him having like another 7 target, 6 catch day. So, but I think Vance McDonald for me, the way he's been integrated the last couple of weeks, the way we've seen him work with Big Ben, 3,700. I'm going to get some exposure to him for sure.
Are you going to play either one of the Atlanta backs?
No.
Okay. Matt Ryan or Ben Roethlisberger?
Which means Tevin Coleman's going to go for like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he was taken off the injury report with his shin injury too. He's going to be good to go for this week. Would you go Ben or would you go Matt Ryan? Because I think I'd go Matt Ryan.
I would go Ben still. I feel like this could be a bit of a letdown spot for Matt Ryan just on the road at Pittsburgh, but I can definitely see. I'm terrible at predicting Matt Ryan too. I'm terrible at everything Atlanta, to be honest. But I would go Ben. He's just been throwing so much more this year. Yeah.
All right. So would you pay up for Antonio Brown or would you take Juju, or is Switzer like your guy here?
I would probably actually, if I was going to pay up for wide receiver, I'd go Julio. And I'd probably just leave the Pittsburgh wide receivers alone. Again, Vance McDonald could get involved. Switzer, James Conner could have a big game. I think there's more ways that Antonio and Juju Smith-Schuster could get have I want to say quiet games than Julio. I think Atlanta's going to be behind in this game, so I would roster Julio at all the big wide receivers.
Yeah, well, the Falcons are like, I mean, they opened the week as like 5.5 point dogs. Now they're like 3 point dogs. I didn't check to see what it was like as of like the second, but I assume it's still 3. So they're expected to be behind in this game. I just like Matt Ryan so much as they seem to, even with Freeman or Coleman, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, Ito Smith was the one who ended up rushing it in last week. That I find it hard to peg down any one Atlanta receiver, but I know they're going to be passing because the defense is so bad that Matt Ryan might end up with like 50-ish passing attempts in this game, potentially a bit more, that I think I might just go Matt Ryan, Sanu, and maybe bring it back with James Conner in a few lineups and let everyone kind of, I mean, I'm going to have exposure to Juju. I'll have exposure to Brown and Julio, even Calvin Ridley for that matter. But I just think that when you're trying to pick out pieces of this game and trying to tell yourself a story about it, that I mean, maybe it goes like Sanu, Austin Hooper, Matt Ryan, and then pay up in like the more expensive spots with guys from other games that are equally good situations that just no one's going to own. So like when it gets into a spot where, hey, I could play Juju, Antonio Brown, or Julio Jones, well, what if I just play Adam Thielen instead? What if I play Keenan Allen instead? It's not like those guys are hugely disadvantaged versus the other ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think if you're going to play Matt Ryan in any kind of style, I think coming back with James Conner is a smart play because again, we saw his usage, when he gets going in week 1, and that's his ceiling. I mean, I don't think it's changed just because he's had a couple slow games, and it's such a good matchup, right? So if you are on that Matt Ryan stack, I think James Conner is like I said, a better target than the wide receivers in this matchup to come back on.
All right, let's talk about wide receivers just in general. At the very top of the fansharesports.com tagging system for the week, Adam Thielen is in at number 1, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be the highest owned guy. Number 2 is Juju Smith-Schuster. Number 3 is Antonio Brown. Those two plus Julio probably will be the 3 highest owned wide receivers of the week. The other ones I'd throw in there, Calvin Ridley is going to be super owned. One of the Jacksonville receivers is going to be super owned. It's either going to be Keelan Cole or D.D. Westbrook. I'm not entirely sure which one it is, which probably means you should just play Dante Moncrief, just because we don't know, right? Like
exactly.
I think Keelan Cole lines up the best to have a big game. D.D. would be second, Moncrief would be third, but it's sort of like the minor league version of the Rams offense, where it could be any one of the 3 guys just on the Rams. It's like all 3 of them in the same game always kind of thing at this point. With them, in the Jacksonville offense, it's like one of them is going to be really good. So you just might as well take the guy no one else is playing if basically all things are equal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I like Keelan Cole out of those 3 too, but I pretty much will always like Keelan Cole out of those 3 because I think he's the best pure wide receiver. But Yeah, it's a guessing game. I mean, it's a pure boomer bust. Like just cover your eyes and pick one of them. I hate to just say that, but I really feel like that's the situation most weeks with Jacksonville. There's arguments for all of them, quite frankly. I'd lean Keelan Cole, but I think I might just lean not playing any of them and just maybe get another piece of maybe just play a little TJ Yeldon or something. And the problem with the Jacksonville wide receivers are too, their floors are terrible. Like, I mean, there's single point floors, right? So it's a real boomer bust situation. And if they're going to become really popular, I think there's other ways you can get value this week.
So of the cheaper guys, like Mohamed Sanu is going to be owned, but not super owned. He's sort of like the missing link in that offense, but he's still seeing all the target share, and he's an easy way to save money as a part of your like wide receivers. If you did want to pay up for I do think that Keenan Allen is a really nice high-end wide receiver play. Like he generally just demolishes the Raiders to begin with. The Chargers are expected to score a lot of points here. Everyone's sort of on Melvin Gordon, a little bit on Austin Eckler, but that's really it. That I think you can make some nice contrarian plays at the very top end of receiver and still get exposure to the really elite guys, just not the elite guys that everyone else is playing.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver is interesting this week because there's not too many players in the Mohamed Sanu range that I really want to play. So it's led me towards making lineups that have been basically just paying up a wide receiver because there's a lot of wide receivers in good spots this week. You mentioned Thielen off the top, but the matchup for Steph Diggs is insane this week. I mean, Jalen Mills is not good. Steph Diggs is really good. And I mean, his target share, is basically the same as Thielen. So I'm going to play Steph Diggs this week. I just think it's a great matchup. I think, again, you're going to get lower ownership than Thielen, who I still like. I mean, you could play them both, I guess, in a cousin stack, but I think just playing Diggs, I think his upside in this matchup is better.
Well, is that the like underrated stack of the week that few people like? A lot of people might talk about it, but no one's really going to play it because they want to play a Jacksonville stack. They want to play a Pittsburgh stack, even a Chargers stack. People are really into that. This Viking stack is just one that seems to just be kind of going on the wayside. Or even if you reverse that around, you could play like Wentz, Elshon, and Ertz too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole game has potential, but I agree. I mean, people are talking about Thielen and they like Diggs, but like Kirk Cousins is throwing 47 times a game. Like he's only 6K. I can't believe his price this week. I thought it'd be at least 6,500, but he's got to be the best value at QB. I mean, it's insane for how much he's throwing, how efficient he's been. So, and it's a good matchup. I mean, the Eagles are great. They have a good D line. They're good at stopping the run, but they're not good at stopping the pass. So they don't have good corners. So I agree. I mean, Diggs Cousins probably one of my favorite stacks right now, just for a QB wide receiver. Like I said, you could pay up for all three, but if I had to pick, I'd just take Diggs.
Well, you mentioned Mohamed Sanu down in that $4,000 range. There's actually a few guys down there I don't mind that if you did want to get access to expensive running backs, an expensive receiver, and maybe an expensive player at a different position, that you could mix in like Mike Williams, Dante Moncrief, Tywan Taylor, Mohamed Sanu. All those guys are in play for me. And then like Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be in a ton of my lineups. Like that's just a fact. He's $3,300. And like you mentioned Switzer, like Switzer wasn't even really on my radar. Like you could potentially, like I don't know how much like James Washington's going to get used, but like that's potential too. I think some of the cheaper parts of these high scoring games are just being completely overlooked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Switzer. The guy, Valdez-Scantling, whatever his name is. He's actually a pretty good prospect, it looks like. But I don't know. I don't think I'm necessarily going to go there just because I feel like with Aaron Rodgers, it's just hit or miss with when they bring in a new wide receiver, if he's going to get the targets or not. And again, I think I'd just rather go with Ty Montgomery, a guy who I'm pretty sure is going to get some targets. And he's, almost the same price. Plus he can get some carries, right? So I get the idea, though, especially if Geronimo Allison is out. That would definitely bump up that play. But, and Mike Williams is interesting, too, for sure. I really like that game, too, for fantasy. I mean, Chargers, Oakland's got the second highest point total. Mike Williams, it's just a recency bias thing. He kind of let everyone down last week, but, he's the red zone machine. I mean, I don't think Antonio Gates is going to see, like, 5 targets and a touchdown every game. It was kind of just a one-off, in my opinion. So Mike Williams at 4,200, like that's a great target, in my opinion.
Well, Marquise Goodwin is a game-time decision, and we're not going to know this, but do you think, because it's in the later set of games, that you would have to utilize the late swap if you were going to do it? But Kendrick Bourne is someone that I think Patrick Peterson will end up being matched up with Garcon. People end up playing Garcon and because Marquise Goodwin's out, play Garcon, he'll have like 12 targets. I don't know if that's going to be the case. That someone like Kendrick Bourne, who scored a touchdown last week, could be just a cheapo option. Like, it's weird this week at receiver. Like, I think there are, if he's a $3,000 guy, Switzer's a $3,000 guy, they're both viable. I do think Valdez-Scantling is viable. I think you could probably even use him in cash. Like, what do you really need him to do? Five for 50, and you're basically doing good, and he has the potential for more than that. And like, hey, if he ends up with like 7 for 70, he's almost up to 4x really, really quickly. That someone like Kendrick Bourne could be a nice tournament play too. Like if you played 10 lineups, use him in 1, use him in 2, if Marquise Goodwin is officially ruled out later on in the day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of these guys we're talking about comes down to the injury report, right? Like, I mean, you're not going to use Scantling and cash if Devontae Adams and Geronimo are
true. Yeah, Geronimo, Allison. I mean, if Adams plays, that's fine. But if Geronimo, Allison, and Cobb is going to miss, if Allison misses as well, that's when I think that Valdez-Scantling becomes a play. Yeah,
and that makes that makes sense, obviously. Bourne though, I like him. I want to like him this week. It's just the CJ Beathard factor, right? So it's a good situation. He's a pretty good player too. I mean, people obviously aren't going to know much about him, but he's pretty capable. I'm actually surprised he didn't get a little bit more push over Dante Pettis. But at 3,200 again, with no Goodwin there and Garcon to take on Patrick Peterson, most likely, he could easily pay off. And I think I'd probably lean him over Scantling, to be honest. But again, it all comes down to injury reports, and it's still Beathard, so I don't know. He's definitely a tournament play for me, but I don't think I'd go there in cash games. I still think Switzer might be the best play of all these guys.
Yeah, maybe. What do you think? Like we talked about how that like $5,000 range at running back was kind of dead. It's shaping up to be very much the same thing at receiver. Like everyone's playing TJ Yeldon in the $5,000 range at running back and then just looking elsewhere rather than the guys around them. This time at receiver, you're looking at high ownership in the very, very top of the $5,000 range with Golladay, with Calvin Ridley, with Tyler Boyd. But then you got like John Brown. You have even Amari Cooper, who's going to end up, just probably sucking in like 14 targets against the Chargers. Devin Funchess is there. I don't really love his matchup against Janoris Jenkins, so I'm avoiding him. Nunwick is going to be matched up with Chris Harris, but he's a target monster, and people are avoiding him. Everyone wanted to play Marvin Jones because of the price, but now he pops up on the injury report. So if he, like, what do you make of Marvin Jones? If he plays, do you think that he'll end up over 10%?
Yeah, I think he might, just because of the price. And just, again, you got the history against Green Bay that some people have been bringing up. You have the price, and then you just have, the trust factor. I think people would rather trust Marvin Jones than say, a Jacksonville wide receiver. We just talked about being a little bit hard to judge. So if he does play, and it's a pretty good report, it's not that big an injury, then I think he would get over 10% for sure, in my opinion. But I don't know. I think I'd just rather play Golladay. I think he's going to be coming at lower ownership, and I don't know. Maybe I just like the player more in the situation, but yeah.
If Jones misses, how much do you think that Tate and Golladay go up?
I think Tate will go up more. We talked about this off the top. Golladay will see a bump, but I don't think it's going to get crazy, especially given with like how many games there are to target this week. Maybe I'm completely off on that, but I just don't see him getting like 15%. I could definitely see over 10%, 10, 12%, but I'd be shocked if he got like a huge bump. That's just the way I'm looking at it, viewing things. How much people have been talking about this game. I feel like this game in general and the Detroit offense in general, outside of Marvin Jones, isn't really getting talked up much. So I don't know if Golladay is going to see like a big bump because he is 6K, right? People will have to pay up for him. Yeah, I think he could go a little bit overlooked.
I think that if Marvin Jones ends up getting ruled out, some of that Ridley and some of that Boyd ownership will just go on to Kenny Golladay because people are using those two guys for sure. But if they see one piece taken out of the Lions offense, they're like, oh, now it's going to be a more concentrated target share. I can use Kenny Golladay. It's not going to be that big of a deal. He's a lot safer in my mind now, and he has more upside to go along with it, maybe more than both of those other guys. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I think I would see a bump, but I think that Marvin Jones is going to end up playing anyway. The last guy I wanted to bring up, I mentioned John Brown as one of my favorite tournament plays from this range. The other one's just Doug Baldwin. People are so torn on Doug Baldwin this week that they either really like him or really don't like him. but I just look at the potential of market share for him against a Rams defense, which frankly, is going to give up points. We've seen that week after week. And if he's going to be manning the slot, that's the perfect place on the field to be against the Rams if Russell Wilson just isn't on his back the entire time. And he's $5,000. Like, very rarely are you going to find Doug Baldwin at $5,000. He's like a $6,300 player.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to the injury issue for me. I mean, I agree. This is a good matchup. I know Aqib Talib, we saw last week what the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers were able to do out there. And I mean, the Seattle offense isn't quite up to the Vikings standards, but it's still pretty good. And you still have Russell Wilson out there able to make plays. It really just comes down to Doug Baldwin's health. That's the only risk here, in my opinion. It's not the matchup. The price is great. It's just you're taking a bit of a risk with health. The guy's playing with 2 bad knees, right? So he seems fine. He got in a full practice on Wednesday, though. I didn't read anything about him yet because it is Seattle. They come out later on the West Coast. But, if he practiced today and he's on the good side of questionable, I'm with you. I'm going to load up on Doug Baldwin. I'll probably use him maybe over Keelan Cole. Well, I'd be more weighted towards him over Keelan Cole. I guess that's a better way of putting it. But yeah, there's no risk here except for the injury, in my opinion. I think this is a great matchup. They're going to be down. They're going to be throwing. Absolutely.
Quarterbacks, let's talk about the fansharesports.com tags first. It's pretty obvious who people like at quarterback this week. Blake Bortles comes in at number 1 as the most tagged player. That's where people are getting their discount at quarterback at $5,500. And it's Ben Roethlisberger. Then it's Matt Ryan. Could you make a case to fade all 3 of these guys in tournaments? Yeah,
absolutely. Play Kirk Cousins. Like I said, he's cheaper. He's throwing the ball more, and he's got just as good a matchup. I think people are just taking the Vegas point totals a little bit too far, in my opinion, and just avoiding some of these other spots with better value or just as good value. I mean, Blake Bortles is fine, but I mean, he's very inconsistent, right? He's had 2 horrible games and 2 really good ones. So Ben and Matt Ryan, I mean, if Pittsburgh gets off to a good start and starts running the ball, Ben could easily go for a slower game. And then Matt Ryan is probably, you mentioned him, and I do think I kind of like him. But I mean, he could be in for a little regression too. Those guys are all in good spots. I'm just saying that Kirk Cousins is also in a very good spot. And he's at a more depressed price for what we've seen him at. And then you also have a guy, down there like Derek Carr at 5,200. He's actually been playing really well, and he's in an absolute shootout game too. So I think there's good arguments to, and I haven't even mentioned Patrick Mahomes, by the way. I think there's good arguments to fade the top 3 quarterbacks, though. I really do.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where ownership can really factor into your decision making. And generally speaking, quarterback ownership is very flat across the board, and most of the time it doesn't make a difference. But you just know that people are going to be correlating Ben with the Pittsburgh guys and Matt Ryan with all the Atlanta guys and even Bortles with some of these Jacksonville guys, that if you just choose to go in a different direction, it really opens up a lot of opportunity. And frankly, if one guy, let's say Ben, and it's really hard to project quarterback ownerships because it really depends on how much people stack and those other sorts of things. There's more behind it than just saying this receiver is going to be owned, this running back is going to be owned, because you want to kind of correlate your lineups a little bit, and people will do that. But if you just threw out Ben, you threw out Bortles, and you threw out Matt Ryan, and the one name that no one seems to be bringing up and is probably the best play of the week. You hit on Mahomes. I like Mahomes. Jared Goff, I think, is a really good play against Seattle, and Cam Newton might be the best play on the slate.
Yeah, Cam Newton for sure. I get that. The 6,400, obviously, with the rushing upside. It just seems like the Panthers are always involved in these games where they're favorites and the game total isn't huge, and people are just I don't like it that much. And then Cam runs for 2 touchdowns and throws for 2 touchdowns, and it's massive.
I'm not going to be using. I'm thinking about pure fading Christian McCaffrey and just using Cam.
Yeah, I think that's that's absolutely. I mean, it's viable, right? I mean, Cam gets just as many red zone rushes as McCaffrey, so if not more. And then Goff, I agree completely. I was going to bring up Brandon Cooks when you're talking about wide receivers. He's got a terrific matchup against a converted safety this week, but Jared Cook is just playing at such a high level, and I mean, the Rams' offense is just rolling, and their defense is giving up points. It's a great situation. So going with a Goff Cook stack or Goff Cup, whoever you like, a wide receiver stack, it's viable. I mean, I've been playing that strategy a bit, and I haven't really hit it because the rest of my plays have all sucked, but the Rams offense is producing, right?
So the other ones too, like if you want to fade Bortles, you mentioned Derek Carr. I'm actually kind of in. That's not a terrible play for his price point and how many times he's putting the ball up. And then Russell Wilson's down there too. He's $5,100. Yeah. Eventually, we're going to get one of these vintage Russell Wilson games, and the cheaper he becomes, the more enticing it is to play him, especially in a week where you do want to pay up for a lot of some of the bigger guys, especially at running back. That opens up a lot of salary cap space if you go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this about quarterback. I don't think you should pay above 6K for a quarterback because, I mean, we've basically gone through all these guys, unless maybe you're playing like a Goff stack to be different. But, Cousins, Wilson, Derek Carr, these guys are all playing well, and you can stack them with pretty cheap receivers too and still get a piece of the Pittsburgh-Atlanta game, right? I mean, Doug Baldwin, Russell Wilson's barely 10K. Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, it's under 11K. Like, these guys are playing well. I mean, Derek Carr is completing over 70% of his passes, yada, yada, yada. I love the cheap quarterback route this week.
And realistically, when we go back and we look at all the point totals from quarterbacks so far this season, week after week after week, like it's pretty clustered at the top of the board anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys are all putting up points, right? I mean, it's a pass-happy league. Penalties towards the offense. I just don't see the point in paying up for like a 7K bend this week.
Tight ends by fansharesports.com. The most tagged tight end of the week is a guy that you brought up a little bit earlier. One, Sir Vance McDonald. A very cheap piece of this Steelers game. He's $3,700. Jared Cook is second. Zach Ertz is third. Travis Kelce is fourth in that tagging system as well. I expect him to be somewhat highly owned just because that's a good way to attack. We saw what Gronk was able to do against Jacksonville last year, not so much this year, but athletic tight ends have hurt. Just big athletic players in general are a way to really get around that Jacksonville defense. And he seems like the one part of the Kansas City offense that people are turning to, that maybe he doesn't end up becoming the best play. I actually like Ertz a little bit better if you were to pay up. But for me, this just comes down to savings. We talked about different ways it's tough to save at running back. We talked about some of the options. We were all fringy on kind of them. We brought up like 4 receivers underneath $3,700. At tight end, you can play Vance at 37. You can play Austin Hooper in that same game. I still like Njoku. And then you can even roll it like a loser like Rhett Ellison or something like that if you really wanted to save some cash. He's below $3,000. That I don't see the point of paying more than $4,000 for a tight end unless you're truly paying up for Ertz or Kelce, and I would go with Ertz.
Yeah, unless I was looking to game stack or something like that, I agree. I don't think I'd pay up for Ertz or Kelce, but I think those guys are viable. Again, if you're looking that way in a tournament, I'm probably not going to do that. And then the kind of dead range with Cook and Jimmy Graham. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know what Jimmy Graham's true upside is yet. I mean, maybe it's better than I think, but I'm just going to avoid him this week. And I agree. I think Njoku's in play. I mean, I think he's a good swerve if you're not going to use Vance McDonald. I mean, we saw him put up his best game with Baker Mayfield last week. This guy's going to find the end zone at some point. I mean, he's still their best red zone target. They're having injury issues and stuff on the outside wide receivers. So I'm still in on Njoku too. I think his upside is better with Baker Mayfield. And then there are some cheap options. I mean, you mentioned Rhett Ellison, and then the super loser Mike Gesicki, who's playing like 85% of the snaps. He's going to get some targets. Yeah, you could definitely punt. And CJ Azuma and Tyler Kroft too, we didn't mention, but Azuma I think is going to might be underowned compared to Kroft. He's been seeing more snaps, so.
I'm just looking at the snap counts from last week's game against the Ravens just to see what pops up here. But like Vance McDonald played 63% of the snaps. It's clear he's the one that they want to use in these situations. But Jesse James is $3,100. That sometimes when you look at these super chalky situations and super chalky games, like there's a chance that Jesse James is the one who has the big game at tight end here, not Vance McDonald. It's unlikely, but it's on the table. It's in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've seen that. That's usually what happens in these big games that everyone gets excited about too. It's like Jesse James catches 2 touchdowns and the wide receivers get nothing, right? Or Austin Hooper catches 2 touchdowns and Julio get none. So, yeah, it's there. I think if I was going to go with the cheap tight end for that game, I'd go Hooper. But Jesse James, exactly. It's like you said, he's still seeing field. He's still a little bit involved in the offense, but yeah.
Defenses to close this out. I got some strong takes on defenses this week. A few that I really like. But per the Fanshare Sports tagging system, right now the Titans come in at number 1, but they're the most expensive defense. If we're talking about paying down everywhere, why are you paying up for a defense? The Carolina Panthers are second, and the Cincinnati Bengals are third. I like the Panthers by far the best of those 3 options. I think the Ravens will end up super chalky as well, even on the road in Cleveland. They're a very decent price, so I do like them as a play. The Jets might end up being relatively chalky when it comes down to playing the Broncos at home, especially if they can establish a lead in that game. We saw that Case Keenum, not the best, and the Jets have been generating a lot of pressure so far this season. But I really like the Lions defense against Aaron Rodgers here. They're generating so much pressure. And I'm not convinced Aaron Rodgers is, he's down weapons. The offensive line is banged up and he's hurt. It's a spot where he's going to have to throw a lot and the Lions might be able to tee off on him. It's risky for sure anytime that you play Aaron Rodgers, but you're talking about a 2% defense that rates out much better than that. And they're $2,200.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I mean, it's one I can semi-support just because I think Detroit's going to win that game. I think they're a little bit better team than people think. It's obviously risky, but again, you just need like one pick six, one thing to happen, right? And all of a sudden you've paid off a $2,200 defense. And there really isn't anyone in that price range that I like. So why not just go with the team that, if you're like me and you think Detroit's a little bit better than they have been and they can pay off at home, why not just go with Detroit? And like you said, a passing off, a more passing heavy game, a game script that we're almost certainly going to get there against the hobble quarterback, right? So no, that makes sense. I'm not quite with you on the Panthers. I don't think I want to pay $3,300. Maybe it's just the Odell factor, and he's got a pretty good matchup, and he's coming in angry this week. But I just don't think I want to pay up there for Carolina. I do like the Bengals. I know you're not as high on them, but at home with Vontaze Burkett back, I just think the Dolphins are such frauds. I think they were exposed last year.
I think they are too. I just don't see where like the fantasy points come for Cincinnati. They might just win this game like 20-10.
Yeah, but they could get 6 sacks, a fumble. They could still sack the quarterback a couple times.
Miami just runs so few plays is the problem. I just feel like their opportunity to generate fantasy points, and they can. On one of those sacks, they could cause a fumble that gets returned for a touchdown, and boom, they instantly pay off. But I want to put myself in a position where you're seeing more of that throughout the course of the game. That's why I prefer the Lions. That there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers throws twice as many times and ends up throwing twice as many times as Ryan Tannehill does.
I guess we should put it this way. I mean, the Lions are cheaper. Obviously, they're probably more bust potential with Rodgers, but the Bengals obviously a much better floor because they could allow 7 points or less or something, in my opinion, against that offense. I can't disagree. I mean, there's probably going to be a few less chances for pick six and stuff like that towards the end of the game for Cincinnati, but for me, I just think it's such a good spot. You're getting such a good floor that I'll take them even if there is a few less passes at the end of the game.
Cincinnati's defense this week reeks of 8 points to me, and they play a good game. They're very solid defensively, but DraftKings points when you look at it, it's 8, and that's probably it's a really good floor. If you want to make that your cash game play, I get it. But for the Millionaire Maker, I think I would. I don't like the Chiefs D this week, but they're cheaper, and they're playing Blake Bortles in a game where he might have to pass 55 times. They're not good, but that could be 2 pick sixes.
No, Chiefs is definitely interesting. I was kind of interested in the Jets at the beginning of the week, but they're going to be without Trumaine Johnson. But it might be a bit of a slower game script. But Case Keenum has been bad. But I would lean Chiefs over the Jets now for tournaments, especially just for the reasons you hit out. I mean, it's Arrowhead, it's Blake Bortles. If it gets a little crazy towards the end of the game, you could see a couple big plays in a row or something. So, like I said, I'm gonna stick with my Bengals pick, Pat, even though you're trying to get me off it, but Chiefs for me definitely in play for tournaments, and I'll give you credit. I mean, I think the Lions are too. I think it's a similar situation.
And the great thing is about the Chiefs, about the Lions, you don't need a ton of them in your lineups because no one is owning them. The other one that you could go to if you want to pay up a little bit from the Bengals, but not into the $3,000 level, I really like Arizona's defense against San Francisco as well. You just talk about how bad Beathard is, and again, you're just dealing with a team with one of the best pass rushes in football against a team with one of the worst offensive lines in football. It's really devastating. There's a lot of these matchups this week. It just kind of sucks that both Dallas and Houston are off the main slate because both those defenses should be really good at scoring fantasy points this week.
Yeah, no kidding. But no, I mean, Arizona definitely, just to touch on that last look, I mean, they're a better unit than they've shown so far. Their offense has just been so bad, but they're going up against an equally bad team essentially. So yeah, definitely in play too.
Oh, so good news on the Pat Mayo experience. I can finally talk about the spread and lines once again, Geoff. It's glorious news and is going to reinvigorate the show with Feinberg and Tim. Now that we're past all that, since I haven't been able to talk about like spreads or anything, my super lock of the week was Baltimore -1 to beat Cleveland. Like you're just basically picking them to win that game, which I thought was just kind of crazy. Oh, the line has actually dropped now. It's now -3 Ravens. Sucks to be anyone who waited this long to get in on that because it was basically a pick 'em at some point. Do you have any like leans this week? Because I like Carolina -7. It's now down to -6, so that's even better. And what was the other one I really liked? I like Arizona in this matchup. They were +4.5. They're now +3.5. I think that there's sharp money coming in on Arizona.
I'm definitely with you on Arizona. I mentioned Detroit off the top. I do like Detroit in that game quite a bit. Pretty big on Cincinnati too, as people already probably guessed. I think those would be my 3 favorite plays right off the hop. Arizona, Detroit, Cincinnati. I just feel like the Bengals are going to, again, just give another big loss to the Dolphins. So I don't know if that'd be my super lock, but definitely one of my 3 favorites. Like I said, I think Detroit's going to upset Green Bay.
Well, the other one I was really looking at too, Jacksonville, Kansas City, the over-under is only 49. It feels like this game could be like 35-30.
Yeah, I mean, always take the over. Actually, I think I was looking at that earlier too. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised there because, I mean, look, Blake Bortles has played well on spots, right? And I mean, he's going up against weak defense, so he doesn't have to do that much for this game total to get to the over.
Well, I think a lot of people just think that like, hey, Jacksonville's like, if the Broncos were able to limit the Chiefs on Monday night, now the Chiefs are coming off a short week, and maybe the offense won't be running and gunning, but we've seen like good offenses post points on Jacksonville like over the past 10 games.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, Ben threw for like 500 yards or someone, it was last year. I mean, good quarterbacks have not taken advantage, but they put up numbers against Jacksonville too. So it's not necessarily like a shutdown situation here for Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, anyways. I think he's going to put up points, and I agree. I think the over there is definitely a good play.
Do you think that Atlanta-Pittsburgh gets to the over of 58, the highest point total of the year?
No, I don't think so. I think that's an underplay for me personally. I really don't.
Listen. I think that I don't know if it's a play either way, but I think when you're constructing DraftKings lineups, that there is a case to be made that let's say you played 10 lineups, that you're gonna want pieces of this game. Obviously, maybe you don't stack this game. Maybe you just use Julio or use Ridley or use Sanu or you just use James Conner or something like that. But a lot of people will just be game stacking that game. That there's a case to be made that in like 4 of your 10 lineups, just don't use anyone from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and again, you look at the slate, it's not just that Pittsburgh game that looks good. Oakland Chargers has almost as big a game total. I do like Oakland there, 4.5, by the way, +4.5. But
it's 5.5 now.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
There you go. I mean, I think neither team has really been that good, especially defensively. So why not just take the points, right? But no, I think with so many other options on this slate, as far as big games, potential shootouts, I agree. I mean, I'll have at least one lineup where I maybe fade that game altogether.
Well, I mean, when we talk about generally speaking, anytime there's a game total over 50, those are games to target on DraftKings in terms of game stacks. And we usually get like maybe 3 a week, and like it's usually like 50 on the dot. And the highest one you see might be 53. It's usually a Saints game, and they're at 52.5 this week. They're off the main slate. But on the main slate, you got Rams Seahawks is 50, Oakland Chargers is 52.5. Green Bay, Detroit is 51, 58 in Atlanta, Pittsburgh. And like I even mentioned, like 49 for that Jacksonville game. So there's enough to go around that you can kind of talk. Even Miami, Cincinnati's 48.5. That does seem high to me. And I guess like when you start thinking about it too, like in terms of like big favorites, the Carolina offense is just kind of being overlooked. I think that's why I like Cam so much, that they're big favorites at home. And their team total is very high just because they're such big favorites over the Giants here.
Yeah, that game, I agree. It's kind of the total looks too low. And also, I think Minnesota, Philly. I mean, I was a little surprised that game total. I think it actually might have started at 45. It's at 46.5 now. And then the Cincy Miami one's actually come down. I think that actually opened at 50. So Yeah, even the games that aren't at 50 with a game total, I mean, there's stuff to like there too. I mean, Carolina's big favorites at home. They still have a big implied team total, right? So, yeah, lots of ways to go on the slate. You don't just have to take. That's kind of why I was anti-Ben there at 6,900. You don't have to stack Pittsburgh as the only option this week. There's multiple ways. Really interesting slate.
And with the price point that comes with Ryan and Roethlisberger, like you're paying up. And the whole key to this week is try to pay down to jam in like high-priced running backs so you don't have to deal with the Ty Montgomerys and Jalen Richards of the world. That you can just play Melvin Gordon and Joe Mixon and be on your way.
Yeah, I mean, and there's good wide receivers in good spots. There's good running backs in good spots. So we went over at quarterback. There's just a lot of good cheap quarterbacks. You got to get value somewhere. So in my opinion, at a position that's probably seen the closest spread of scoring, so far this year, that's where I'll be taking my value. At least try to.
All right, Geoff Ulrich, DK Live at the Fantasy Grind on Twitter. Pimp yo shit, Jeff.
Yeah, no, definitely check out the DK playbook. I got tournament articles up there every week. It's already up there for week 5. And make sure you download the DK Live app so you can watch me talk sports on the Sweat Show there every week. You should be able to view it there or on YouTube. But thanks a lot, people.
Yes, the Sweat will be live 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on YouTube and Facebook, both under the DraftKings channel this week. If you're missing the live Pat Mayo experience, it's Thanksgiving weekend for you and I, Jeff. It's not for everyone, but for I know. What's that?
I was gonna wish you happy Thanksgiving. I forgot.
There you go. I'll be back. I'll be working on the actual holiday, so I'm going to be here 10 a.m. Eastern Time, DraftKings YouTube channel for the recap show Monday morning. It's just the only Sunday I'll probably take off all year, so I'm going to enjoy it with my family. Hopefully I don't have to see...
I'll be working. I'm taking my holiday in November.
Ah, see, I'm going to be working on American Thanksgiving and all throughout that weekend to really capitalize on the... There's a direct lack of content over American Thanksgiving that I can really capitalize on that. Every year, I'm like the only guy doing anything.
That's true. I think I was the only person working for DraftKings last Thanksgiving because I wasn't celebrating it.
See, there we go. All right, I do want to let everyone know the odds and lines are subject to change. See the website for actual odds. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you can download podcasts, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. And follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at ThePME. The cheat sheet is up on DKPlaybook.com and in the description. Smash the like button on the way out and have yourself a good weekend. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!